Hello, everyone. Welcome back to session 2 of our Financial Planning Bootcamp. This session is Developing Your Financial Fitness Plan. We have with us Caroline Wetzel, who will be facilitating this event. So would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Rose. Yes, it's a pleasure to be with you and with all of you this afternoon on this second installment of our Financial Planning Bootcamp series. By way of reintroduction, my name is Caroline Wetzel, and I'm a Vice President, Private Wealth Advisor with Procyon Partners. And as we begin today, I've prepared some slides that I'm delighted to share with you shortly. With your help, Rose, would it be possible that I could begin to share my slides with the group to part of reintroducing myself and diving into the content together?
Okay, I've made you co-host. You should be able to share your screen now.
Great, thank you, Rose. And may I have confirmation that we can see the first screen of the presentation? Can everyone see that?
Yep, I can see that.
Thank you very much. By way of reintroduction, like I said, today I'm a Vice President Private Wealth Advisor with Procyon Partners. We are an independent fiduciary financial planning and investment management firm that services clients all over the country. The majority of clients I work with have a few $1 million of assets that they entrust to our care to manage according to a plan we develop for them. But I haven't always been doing this work. And what I would love to do as we get ready to dive into the content of our financial fitness plan for you is to give you a bit more information around who this friendly face is. And for those of you who joined me last time in this webinar, you'll recognize this story. For those of you who are new, I'm glad you're here. And I just want you to know who I am. So very quickly, I've worked in finance for over 20 years. The majority of time, I was a corporate executive with a major international services company. And in a very short period of time, my husband, Scott, and I, who you see in the picture here, had life not happen according to plan that we set out for ourselves. Put most simply, we had multiple miscarriages. I gained a lot of weight, lost a lot of weight, and additionally was diagnosed with alopecia areata universalis, which is a condition known as, it's an autoimmune condition where I've lost all my hair. So this is a wig, and I choose to simulate every day through this makeup a look that looks like how I used to look. The reason why I bring this up to you today as we begin this conversation is in those moments of significant personal health, pain, and crisis gave a rebirth to professional purpose and personal why. You see, I loved working in finance, and when things didn't happen according to plan, I used those circumstances to pivot, to change. I became a certified financial planner, which is a fiduciary. I joined a team of professionals, only some of whom are in the bottom of the page now. And now I have the privilege all day and every day. In the same way my husband and I sought to retain control over my personal health, now I aspire to help every individual as best I can to own your financial health. I want you to optimize your financial choices. And I do this through serving clients, through having virtual conversations like with you today, as well as in people's living rooms and the comfort of their own homes. And I even founded the Women Owning Their Wealth Collaborative, because at the end of the day, each of us has the power to look at circumstances, whether it's personal health or personal finances, make thoughtful choices that set us up for success today and over time. And it is with that passion that with I've Squared, New Haven Free Public Library, and all of the members of their team that we developed this personal financial planning boot camp. You see, this is the second installment of a 4-part series designed to offer you different dimensions around personal financial training and management. Each session has a different lesson and set of information for you to use, and they build upon each other. So as the second installment, there are certain fundamentals that we talked about last time that are available on the New Haven Free Public Library's Facebook page, if you'd like to check out that recording. And this time we're going to talk about the personal financial fitness plan. And then in a couple of weeks, we will continue our discussion with focusing on investing and ultimately retirement planning. Attend all 4 webinars, check out all 4 recordings to get the most meaning out of this full series. So as we begin today, what are the things that we're going to cover together? First, I want to review and clarify for all of us here today what we mean by financial health and well-being. After reconfirming that vision, I'd like to introduce to you personal financial planning and give you some strategies for practicing setting goals. And lastly, highlight some techniques that you can use to create a personal financial fitness plan that actually works for you and works for you over time. So as we begin, as always, utilize the chat function, the Q&A function. I'll endeavor to do my best to address any questions that come up along the way. And if you have any feedback along the way, please feel free to complete the survey that I've included as well in the chat function. So let's get into the content together. As we mentioned last time, what is personal financial well-being all about? It is not about having a certain number of dollars in your bank account. It's not about living in a particular zip code, nor is it necessarily wearing certain clothing. It's about having a mindset, having a lifestyle, and a way of operating in the world that brings you purpose today and allows you to achieve your goals over time. And what you see described here as reflected and articulated by the Consumer Finance Bureau through the US government is 4 dimensions of financial well-being. The first, on the far left-hand side of the page, has to do with daily visibility and control, month-to-month basis on what's coming in and what's going out when it comes to your overall finances. The second dimension of financial well-being has to do with your capacity that in that day-to-day, in that routine, you're able to absorb shocks. If something shouldn't happen according to plan, if there should be some kind of emergency, what is your ability to respond to that emergency in that moment and recover from it? The third dimension of financial well-being has to do with being on track to meet your financial goals, having a vision, having an idea of where you are now, where you aspire to be in the future, how you're going to get there, and checking your progress along the way. And lastly, the fourth dimension has to do with having the freedom, having the enjoyment of making choices along that financial journey that bring you joy, that enable you to have a satisfying lifestyle. You see, none of these dimensions have anything to do with a specific number or a specific age or anything like that, but it has to do with a quality of life and a way that we're approaching life. So at the end of the day, people with the same income, comparable financial experiences or education can experience very different levels and understandings of financial well-being. And what we're trying to do in this 4-part series is give you the tools and the techniques using the metaphor of exercise and boot camp to give you specific things that you can do to experience these dimensions. The first 2 dimensions, day-to-day control over month-to-month finances and absorbing financial shock, we covered a lot of those last time. This time today, we're talking more about being on track to realize and meet your goals over time. So as part of that vision of being on track to meet your goals, what exactly is a personal financial fitness plan? I came up with this concept because it's quite personal. Like I mentioned, my professional vision and my professional vocation is all around helping other people understand their financial choices to optimize their financial health. Well, that came about from a very real, ongoing, daily struggle and work with my own personal health. So a personal financial fitness plan is the day-to-day, ongoing identification of what you can do to experience health now as well as health over time. So a personal financial fitness plan will look very different, individual to individual, couple to couple, family to family. But even though what your fitness plan might look like might be different from another person, there are 4 steps that all people can follow to create a flexible structure for developing your personal financial fitness plan and helping it work. In the same way, my particular daily exercise routine may look very different from my husband's and very different from my girlfriend's, but we all have elements of creating and following that plan so we can be healthy. With that mindset and with that context then, step 1 of your personal financial fitness plan has to do with identifying your financial pain points. You see, in the same way that you may not always necessarily start a physical workout routine unless either you're inclined to like it or want it, you might be inclined to kind of repair or restore some kind of ailment. I invite you to take a step back wherever you are in this moment with your personal finances and just do a little discovery. What is it that you like? What is it that you don't like? And what is it that you wish could be different? Because it's in that dissatisfaction, that dis-ease with your personal finances that will be the opportunity for agitation, the opportunity for growth and discovery, and the fertile ground to create your personal financial fitness plan. So when we think about those things that might be unsettling, some of the most common financial pain points that are often identified by people, and this is from a study done by Mass Mutual of America, has to do with 4 areas of personal finance. Many people, when they say what their personal financial pain points include, cite to begin with their income. Are they really being paid what they're worth today? Are there other ways to earn other income? If they earn other income, what is the interplay between that income and their current income, so that way they can best be making use of their income choices and their expenses over time? For those who might be working professionals full-time today, pain points might be, how might my income be changing over time when I want to work on my own terms, if I aspire to retire? So that personal financial pain point that is often highlighted as income may look different person to person, but often may include income. Savings is another common area that's often highlighted. One question that I'm regularly asked is, hey, Caroline, how much do I need to save? And the most honest answer is as much as possible to afford the lifestyle that you want. But that number will look very different individual to individual. So many times the financial pain point might be, what is the target amount for savings today that I need, given what I want to do over time? And as my life changes, where I may move from being responsible only for myself to perhaps being in a partnership where we share some of the financial responsibilities, to maybe then having kids and maybe caring for aging parents, that savings number is going to look very, very different at different life points. The key question, the key pain point is then, what is the target savings that I need to do right now? And how can I best set myself up for success in achieving it? Retirement is often cited as a financial pain point, and I'm finding this more and more increasingly so now with this post-COVID world, this move from pandemic to endemic, everything from the Great Resignation to people questioning, what am I working for? And maybe it's not until a certain age where I move from working for another company to being fully retired, but maybe it's moving from working full-time to finally going after that business that I know and need. There is an opportunity today, and I would like to strategically use my retirement savings in new and different ways. It's making sense of what retirement looks like now, and how can you set yourself up for success in preparing for it as how it looks on your terms and your lifestyle. And lastly, the 4th most cited financial pain point by many people in light of Mass Mutual has to do with debt. Now, I'm a fiduciary that I often like to say, I do not view debt as a nasty 4-letter word. I view it as a strategic tool that you can deploy to help you open your financial choices, not undermine them. And when I say it in this way, strategic use of debt might be around using a mortgage to purchase a home, perhaps using some strategic financing to afford that particular second home or piece of real estate. But the reason why it's cited as a pain point is that when accumulating debt, many people have questions around, is this okay? And am I going to be okay over time? Which prompts up these other areas of financial pain points that many people often cite as well. In addition to these four main areas that MassMutual highlighted, from my own professional experience, there are other areas that are causing people financial pain and dis-ease more and more every day. With so many people now living on average to their 80s, men until 82, women till 88, when we create financial plans for people, we envision on average men living until 92, women until 95, and we expect that many people today will live into their 100s. So questions around longevity and am I doing enough with regard to financial planning for a long life? Questions around taxes, especially when new legislation is in the hopper, changes in administration describe potential changes to tax rules and tax codes. Those cause lots of financial pain and dis-ease for different individuals. And of course, that also comes out and begs the question, where am I missing opportunities? What are some smart money moves I can do today, whether it has to do with my income savings, or maybe whether it comes to do with my investing or debt management or my insurance choices? And don't forget, my giving to others along the way, charitable giving and being tax efficient. The key takeaway that I offer you in this moment, when it comes to be the first step of 4 steps in developing your personal financial fitness plan, is to give yourself the space and give yourself the freedom to pause, to reflect, and identify in the universe of all these different pain points that different people experience, what uniquely causes you disruption? What keeps you awake at night? What are you worried about? Identify it and write it down. With that, I'm going to pause. I'm going to take a quick sip of my water and check and see if we have any questions before we go to the second step. Seeing none, I'll press on. So as we move forward, personal financial fitness plan, a flexible framework to help you make thoughtful choices today and over time for optimizing your financial health. Step 1, identify your financial pain points. You cannot get stronger or more healthy unless you identify what's holding you back. What are those pain points? That's what step 1 is all about. Step 2 now begs the question, let's do a bunch of priorities. We cannot move forward until or unless we take that grab bag, that brainstorm of different pain points, and we put them in a prioritized order for progression. You know, in the same way with my own personal health, if I want to do everything from losing weight to being stronger, to getting better with my golf swing, to being stronger to keep up with friends and family as we go boating on Long Island Sound, I can't do that all day one. I have to do it in a natural, sequential, methodical way. And the same thing has to do with your finances. So when we talk about prioritize your financial pain points, I invite you to frame your financial pain points according to 3 parameters. What is causing you the most pain in the immediate term? What's causing you the most pain in the intermediate term? And what's causing you the most pain in the longer term? Now, I get it. You may not be fully vested 100% of your time all day, every day in your finances. So a question may be, hey, Caroline, how do I even begin? But I invite you to just take a step back and look at that laundry list of the different pain points that you shared with yourself and said, this is what's important. And just say, which of these things am I thinking of most often? Or which of these things do I get the most worked up about? Or which is the thing perhaps that I share with someone in a partnership, or that I'm most responsible, has the most impact on those people that I love, that I have financial obligations around? Those become the immediate. For those things that are just kind of always on your mind, but may not bubble up the same level of anxiety or worry or frustration, consider it intermediate. And for those things that are on your mind, you know you have to cover them, but they're not with the urgency and the immediacy of the first two columns, consider that the long term. So purely for the purposes of conversation and illustration, what you see here is an example of how an individual seeking to create her own personal financial fitness plan may break down and may categorize those 10 areas of pain points we talked about in the first step into an immediate, intermediate, and long-term focus for herself. She might consider, for instance, having clarity first on her income and savings and debt, because those will then treat and provide her the financial foundation to make thoughtful, new, or different decisions around retirement, around her investing, so that she's more acutely aware of opportunities she might be missing or taking along the way, so that ultimately she is, in the long term, setting herself up for success to be smart about where she's incurring taxes and why. And maybe she is mitigating tax consequences through strategic use of different gifting strategies. And she's considering the long term because she has a plan in place for prioritizing, making smart money moves throughout her immediate, intermediate, and long-term progression of her different financial priorities. Key takeaway then from step 2, to complement the hard work of step 1, where you identify what are your financial pain points, step 2 says you go through the natural process of filtering them, of categorizing them, and of prioritizing what is most immediate, what is intermediate, and what is longer term. And here's where I'd love to volunteer a couple of stories. You know, what might be immediate and intermediate and long term today may look very different in 6 months' time. So as an example, I was working with someone and we were saying as a team, following this major life event, she had changed careers and she had just come out of a serious relationship. And so she was now fully responsible for her finances. She wanted to be thoughtful and strategic with her next chapter professionally. We as a team identified the immediate items had to do with income, savings, debt, and retirement. She needed to now have a renewed approach to her retirement savings. After she progressed these immediate priorities and we checked in subsequent months, those immediate priorities then became second priority because she had the activities in place to now new investing opportunities. Through careful savings, she not only built up her emergency savings, but she now had additional funds that she could use for new investing opportunities. Those became her immediate pain points, and together we came up with solutions for managing them. So this is what the prioritization of financial pain points looks like. It is dynamic. What makes sense today may look different as you progress the pain points, but it's an ongoing process of identification, prioritization, and action. And so in light of that, if we confirm together as a team, step 1 is about identification, and step 2 is about prioritization, what's step 3? Well, step 3 has to do with envisioning your successful financial future. Now, believe it or not, this is perhaps the area that in my own professional experience, many people find the most difficult. So many of us are entrenched in the day-to-day realities of life. What's going on with my work? What's going on with my family? What's going on with the budget? What's going on with these new expenses? Oh my gosh, this loved one has this new challenge that she's dealing with. This day-to-day entrenchment blinds us from thinking beyond the budget, blinds us from thinking beyond what's next. When we see dramatic news headlines of geopolitical events or market volatility, some people get so entrenched in the noise of the day-to-day that they don't have the ability to see how this immediate noise is going to change, and they need to look beyond it. So as part of envisioning your successful future, you need to first acknowledge this is dynamic, this is changing, and you have choices and an opportunity to see a future and make it happen. So what does that look like? What does envisioning your successful financial future entail? It's having a framework to think about. Now, those of you who might have studied psychology or come across Maslow's hierarchy of needs may recognize this Procyon financial planning pyramid that I built with my firm as similar in structure and ideology to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Now, for those of you who are not aware of Maslow's hierarchy, what it effectively does is it says that we as human beings, our behaviors are influenced by the extent to which certain needs, wants, and wishes are met over time. And those needs are formulated and structured according to a pyramid, where foundational needs like food and shelter are at the base of the pyramid. And as those needs are met, then we want and aspire and seek out new things and different things. Like then we want personal happiness. And then when we have personal happiness, we might seek spiritual fulfillment. That's the psychology of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. From a financial perspective, what I invite you to do in envisioning your successful financial future is to recognize that wherever you are today, you are on a continuously evolving, building path for being successful over time. And you may find yourself at a stage today in your path that as and where you continue to strengthen that aspect of your finances, you ascend to a new and different level of financial health and wellness for your future. So what you see here at the base of our pyramid is clarity, kind of like that financial well-being on what am I doing day to day? How much am I spending? Where am I today in my financial journey? Do I have a budget? Do I understand my emergency savings? Am I building up the tools today that then I can utilize to then grow over time? So at the base of your successful financial future, we want you to understand and see that you need some key things: clarity of your income expenses, understanding around the debt management, the development and the maintenance of an emergency savings plan, and the identification of goals or something beyond right now that you are working towards. And as we ascend the pyramid, we realize that once we achieve that step one, how much am I spending and where am I, we are moving into the wealth accumulation phase. So we start to have the tools to work with, and we're building what's next. In the wealth accumulation phase, through the strategic use of purchasing of insurance to offset risks to our lifestyle, through the strategic use of investing, whether it's in the public markets or in our education and getting a new career, what we are doing is we are utilizing new solutions to grow what we have and over time protect and grow further what we have as part of stage two, which is wealth protection. And ultimately, as we are able to sustainably afford the lifestyle that we enjoy, as we are able to not only know what we're doing today, but know what we're investing for, working towards, seeing beyond the day-to-day noise, the future that we are building, we ultimately have the opportunity to coordinate, to structure, to organize, and if we so choose, to share what we have with others. And that's the wealth coordination and ultimately the legacy activity around personal financial planning, where you answer the questions: am I doing what I want? Am I sharing as I wish? Now I'm enjoying that financial freedom that I aspire to enjoy. To get to that level of enjoyment, of fulfillment, of success when it comes to your personal finance, it is a progression, it is a process, it is fluid, and it is continuously moving from the foundation through accumulation, protection, and growing and coordination over time. But to get there, step 3, you need to realize it's a process and envision your future to make it happen. With that, I'm going to take another sip from my water, check and see if there's any questions or any moments in the chat, and then we'll continue. Seeing none, we will press on together. So as we prepare for step 4 of the process of building your personal financial fitness plan, let's recap. Step 1, identify the pain points. These will stir you to act. Second, prioritize them, because you can't do everything all at once day one. What is the sequence of priorities and pain points you will seek to cure or solve the dis-ease? Thirdly, acknowledge that in the process, there is a longer term vision at play. It's not just the immediate resolution of those immediate priorities. You are on the path to both accumulate, grow, protect, and enjoy and share your wealth. And you need to own that and want that. And that will enable you to persevere and keep showing up and keep progressing the personal financial fitness plan. So in light of those 3 steps, what could step 4 be? It has to do now with setting those concrete goals to simultaneously reduce those pain points and build financial power. Again, the parallels with physical health. How are we going to move if we have that vision of the healthy individuals we want to be, either physically or financially? We need to now set goals to make it happen. And as we get rid of that pain and minimize the pain, we now have new power and opportunity and strength. So how do we do this? How do we reduce pain and build financial power? For those of you who are in organizational strategy or in your work, you're responsible for goal setting, you may recognize these 5 dimensions called SMART goal setting. SMART as a word is an acronym for 5 dimensions of effective ways to establish and actually realize goals. Each one of the letters stands for a different adjective to describe how a goal should be articulated for you to connect with it and for you to actually make it happen. So S in SMART refers to specific, M refers to measurable, A refers to achievable, R refers to relevant, and T refers to timed or time-bound. And the message here is that saying we want to do something isn't going to make it happen. Just because I pay for a membership at the gym doesn't mean I'm going to be healthy. But it's through the deliberate specification, identification, and action on goals, then they become real. So let's give an example. When we talk about finances and specific, what I invite you to think about when you're thinking about what is the personal financial fitness plan I want to create, is it have to do with a dollar amount of income, for instance, that you want to make? Or could it be a percentage of savings you're seeking to improve upon? Measurable when it comes to your finances has to do with having a bench or a target compared to where you are. So by way of example, when we think of personal finances, it might be, today I have 2 months of my emergency savings in one account. I want to measure it, and by the end of 4 months, I want to have 2.5 months worth of emergency savings in those accounts. Measurable has to do with metrics, being able to compare so that you can assess progress. When it comes to A, achievable, when it comes to your personal finances and personal financial fitness plan, it's great to be aspirational. As you can see with the woman in the presentation slide, stretching for those goals, but it needs to be achievable too. So by way of example, as hard as I will work out at the gym, I likely, because I have no ACL functioning in either knee, I never will really be able to really run in a marathon. But I can potentially move quickly in a 5K. So it's the idea of identifying, based on your specific circumstance, something that is achievable and stretchable, but not completely out of the realm of possibility that it becomes frustrating. So an example may be, yes, perhaps over time, you aspire to have a certain amount of retirement assets by a certain age. Well, part of determining that number might be looking at where you are today and what the incremental savings would be required for that to be in place by that time in the future. If that difference is so tough, it's going to be more than your regular income, that's not achievable. But if it's a portion of your regular income and a portion of your current savings, and you're upping the ante a bit, turning it up a notch, a percentage point, then it becomes achievable. R for relevant when we talk about personal finances has to do with meaning. So for instance, for someone like me, if I'm talking about a personal financial goal, if I'm looking to do something that has nothing to do with that's important to me, it's not going to make me save for it or invest for it. But if I'm coming up with a financial goal that has to do with my family or that has to do with my health, that's relevant. That's going to motivate me. That's going to entice me to actually progress and keep to my financial plan and identify a goal that will work. So relevance has to do with when you're setting a goal, don't just set a goal to put something on paper. Make it meaningful for you so that you actually want to do it. And lastly, time-bound or timely has to do with simply accountability. The idea being that you framed it, whether it's according to a frequency that you're looking at your statements, for instance, or by a calendar point in time, you aspire to hit a certain milestone in your own financial fitness. The idea being that there is an independent, objective, time-oriented marker that promotes accountability. And here's where some people ask me, well, Carolyn, what if I don't do it? What if it doesn't happen, that I don't actually have those emergency savings in place by that particular date that I wish? And that's where I ask the question, what's the worst that will happen? The worst that will happen if you don't have your target amount of emergency savings but by that date, but you have an incremental portion closer to it than you are today, that's fantastic. Then when you get to that date, find another date and build another SMART goal so that you are achieving that goal. Failing to achieve the goal is not the problem. The problem is not being forward thinking enough to set a SMART goal and move on it and make incremental progress. Progress is still progress. And that's what it's all about when it comes to either your personal health or your financial health. So key takeaway for step 4, when setting goals as part of your personal financial fitness plan, remember these 5 elements to make them work for you. First, specific, be concrete. M, measurable. A, achievable. We want it to be aspirational, but we want to make sure we have progress along the way. Relevance, make it meaningful for you, motivational for you to actually want to do the work to make it happen. And time bound, just so that you can hold yourself accountable and make sure that it happens. And here on the next page are some examples. If you, as you are reflecting on your financial pain points and you're prioritizing them, and you now see where you are today, perhaps you're in wealth accumulation or you're in wealth coordination, how might you identify and articulate some SMART goals? Here are some examples. If you're striving to increase your annual income, a SMART goal may be increase your annual income by 2% by April of 2023. If savings is a priority, understand where you're saving today as a benchmark and aspire to save 10% of your net after-tax annual income by May 2023. And check in along the way to see how are you doing. Thirdly, if retirement is a consideration for you, seek to build a retirement fund equal to at least a certain amount, For instance, 15 times your annual income by some years from now. And between now and, in this example, April 2030, check in on a regular basis, say every 6 months, to see how are you doing with that retirement fund and its growth over time. And lastly, if debt is something that is of importance to you, I'm looking at those 4 dimensions that most Americans cite, then maybe you make a priority to always be paying off your credit cards every month. And on top of that, you're seeking to systematically pay down other sources of debt through a clearly defined debt payment schedule between now and some point in time in the future. An example may be 2032 in June. So the actual SMART goals for you will be very specific to your situation, but I hope that you can see by these examples that regardless of what your pain points are, you can, when you apply those 5 dimensions of SMART to your goal setting, you can be concrete and targeted around how you will make them happen as part of your personal financial fitness plan. So let me do a pulse check. Pulse check in light of the personal financial fitness plan. Together already today, we've reviewed financial health and financial well-being. We've discussed together what personal financial fitness plan entails, and we've talked about these 4 steps for making it real, and we practiced a little bit of this goal setting. What I'd like to do now is transition, and I'd like to invite you to consider some strategies that clients of mine, as well as I myself, have used to make a personal financial fitness plan actually work on a daily basis. So what you see here are, in my opinion, the top 5 things that work. First, when you're thinking of your personal financial fitness plan, include your needs, your wants, and your wishes. If you include in your personal financial plan only the things that you have to do, like, have the emergency savings, or you need to be saving for the future for retirement, or something like that, but you're not doing the things that you want to do. In my case, maybe it's going to a golf clinic to actually improve my golf swing, or maybe it's going for a sailing lesson to get a little bit better at pulling the lines. Include the wants and wishes too, because until or unless you include all those things that bring you joy and prioritize them, you're not going to necessarily be motivated to make it happen. Key here is include them and then prioritize them. And I'm going to share again one of my favorite stories that I shared last time, but those of you who know me well will recognize it right away. Needs, wants, and wishes are important. They just are important at different points in time. So I am the daughter of 2 teachers. My mom is a retired high school teacher. My dad is a retired community college professor. And so we seldom went out to eat growing up at all because it cost money. And when we did go out to eat, it was when we got straight A's on our report card. So I vividly remember one of the first times I got straight A's on my report card, running home from school, getting into the kitchen where my father was grading papers. And I came into the room and said, "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy, we need to have Pizza Hut for dinner tonight because I got all A's on my report card." Where my father lovingly sits back and folds his arms and says, "Carolyn, you need to eat dinner tonight. You want it to be pizza and you wish it were Pizza Hut." And so I just invite you to think of it that way, that as you identify your personal financial pain points and you prioritize them, include with your plan and with your goal setting some goals that you want and that you wish, and just prioritize them accordingly, because that's what's going to keep you focused on the long term. All are important. They're just at different points in time. And if you don't call it out, how are you going to make them happen? Second, I encourage you to dedicate and protect time to focus on your finances. It's all too often that we're so enmeshed and ingrained in our day-to-day activities that it's not until those bills are due, or perhaps your financial advisor reaches out for a checkpoint, or maybe it's tax time, that all of a sudden you think, "Oh, wait, how can I be better at these certain parts of my finances, or then that fear of missing out might be creeping into your concerns. Part of creating a financial fitness plan that works for you includes financial self-care, includes a regular check-in to just understand what's going on and how it's working. And it doesn't have to be intense, and it doesn't have to be to every single decimal point in every single one of your statements. The idea is that it is ongoing, it is sustainable, and it serves your purpose of understanding what are you doing, where are you going, and how well are you going along the way. And, you know, my husband and I, we do this, it's about every 2 weeks or so for us. We kind of divide the roles and responsibilities, and we check in every couple of weeks. Hey, you got this? Yeah, I got that. Anything new or different? We're good to go. And then on a quarterly basis, we look at everything. We look at our investments. We look at our debt. We look at everything. How are we doing? What's new or different? How do we make the way forward? It's easy for him and me because he's an analytic guy, he's an engineer, and I'm analytic. So it's easy for us. For clients who might have different levels of enthusiasm for having the conversation, make it fun. I say do something like money and mimosas. If you have a little dedicated time together on a Saturday morning, once a month, pour a little mimosa, pull out the statements. How are we doing on our personal finances and on our personal financial fitness plan? What did we say we were going to do in the last month? Have we done it? What are we going to do different for the next month? But you got to dedicate it and protect that time, because otherwise you'll miss the opportunity to make this financial fitness plan work and work for you. Thirdly, acknowledge and learn from setbacks. In my example earlier, where I talked about time bound, and when some people say, oh, Carolyn, what if I don't do it by that time? That's okay. You know, our personal financial health is very similar to our personal physical health. It's an ongoing process. It's trial and error. An integrative medicine medical doctor whom I adore once invited me to look at 80-20 rule. 80% of the time, try to be as healthy as possible. And if 20% of the time you're not so great, you're human. In the same way, I invite you to acknowledge and learn from financial setbacks. When you might make a financial decision that maybe wasn't so great, when you splurged on that fantastic sale at your favorite store, pause, realize it, and learn from it. What was the trigger from that event? What can I do differently next time? How can I get myself back on track? Some people will say, for instance, oh my gosh, Caroline, I needed to use my emergency savings. I'm all screwed up. No, your emergency savings are there for those emergency purposes. That's not a setback. If you need to tap into that emergency fund, do it and then replenish it. The setback would be if you don't replenish it, so that way when the next emergency comes, you don't have it. Key takeaway here, we are continuously aware of, working with, monitoring, and I dare say use the verb playing with our approach to our personal finances so that we are getting better and better and stronger with a personal financial fitness plan that lasts over time. Fourthly, this is where the fun, Carolyn, can't help but come out, celebrate and reward achievements. When you have that new investment account set up because you have the emergency savings in place, because you have the retirement savings underway, congratulate yourself, celebrate it, do something special. You know, I think all too often we get so task focused and, oh my gosh, I'm not doing this or I'm not doing that, or this is the financial pain point that's causing me disease, that when we actually do something that works, we don't give ourselves the time to celebrate it. So there had been a client that I had worked with who had received a promotion with work, and with that promotion came increased salary and a bonus structure. And to her credit, she made her financial private wealth advisor, fiduciary private wealth advisor, very happy by saying, "Here, Carolyn, is how I would like to invest it in new and different ways with my portfolio." To which I said, "Great. And how much of it are you going to do to enjoy for you?" And the idea being that with your finances, you can, as you have that vision for the future, as you achieve goals, in her case, she wanted that promotion that brought so much new financial and professional opportunity, that you can celebrate along the way too. It's just rewarding those achievements and keeping it in light of your longer term plan. And lastly, have fun along the way. Similar to the R of relevance for the SMART goal, when your financial fitness plan has meaning for you, you'll stick to it. You know, in the same way, this work that I'm doing is all about having purpose. And I believe deeply each of us can make choices every day to set ourselves up for financial success. When you see that that works for you and you have fun with the process, then you keep doing it. So as we begin to close, all I would like to do in this moment is to take a step back and say, when it comes to strategies for creating a personal financial fitness plan that works for you, it's the combination of it being comprehensive, needs, wants, and wishes. What brings you joy and what are you seeking over the long term? That you have dedicated time to look at it, to assess it, to measure the progress, and to think about it. That when you're assessing it and understanding it and there are setbacks, no problem, learn from them. What's new or different, we're going to continue doing going forward. As there are successes, celebrate them, reward them, and have fun along the way. Continuously seek new meaning through your personal financial plan. And with that, as I prepare shortly to hand it back to Rose to close for us, what I'd love to do in this moment is just summarize. As a team today for the second webinar of our series, where we're focusing on building a personal financial fitness plan that works for you, we reviewed what financial health and well-being entail. We talked about personal financial planning as a process and talked about the 4 steps of setting goals, identify the pain points, prioritize them, envision a successful future, know where you are along the path for doing so, and lastly, set goals that you can use to reduce the pain, build the strength, and then follow those strategies for making that personal financial plan work for you. And as out of appreciation for your time today, know that I always am here. If you would value a complimentary consultation about your situation, reach out. If you had feedback to this particular experience today, complete the survey in the chat and stay tuned and join us again. We will have our last 2 installments of this webinar series. The third one will be on May 10th, where we're going to strengthen our financial fitness through investing. And the 4th one will be how can we train today for a financial healthy retirement in the future. And with that, I thank you very much for today's experience. And I would love to pass it back over again to Rose to close us out for today's webinar, as long as there aren't any questions. Rose, may I hand it back to you?
All right, thank you. As she said, we've got 2 more sessions coming up next month. If you want to see the previous session, we have the video for it on our Facebook page. You can watch that anytime, and the video for this current session will also be there if you ever want to review it. We hope to see you back again for our next session.